Lincoln didn't have the right to declare war. Therefore, anything he did before Congress declared war was unconstitutional.
Okay. Okay, can I
Go ahead. It's an open debate.
okay, so y'all are stating that what Lincoln did was unconstitutional, but technically, slavery is very unconstitutional because in the Constitution it states that all men are created equal and are allowed rights. Like, what are the natural rights? And you're not giving the slaves natural rights.
I would like to say that Abraham Lincoln's focus wasn't even to stop slavery. It was to preserve the Union, so he really wasn't trying to end slavery. And also, by that logic, segregation shouldn't have been a thing. They were still having different races segregated, and that wasn't an issue for them, at least.
By protecting, he was trying to protect the Union by ending slavery.
No, he wasn't.
Okay, I see where Melanie is coming from, but in his statement, he says, if I could save the Union without freeing any slaves, I would do it.
But he also says that if he could end slavery, he would too.
Yeah, but like, just, I understand where Earl's coming from, but just by him saying that, it makes him put in a place where he really does not care about slavery. He cares more about preserving the Union. But even with that statement, he doesn't really care about preserving the Union because he still segregated the South. And if they were all one country, why would he do that? If he was trying to preserve the Union, why would he do that?
Because the South, the South and the North both want different things. But what the South doesn't understand is that there's a way we could, what is the word? Compromise, and y'all aren't willing to do that. So he has to do what he has to do in order.
If the past has showed any indications of anything, compromises never work, whether we come to one or not. They just never work. If they did work, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in right now. So why compromise?
If compromise didn't work, why would we be in the situation we are in now?
No. If compromises did work, we wouldn't be talking about a civil war.
Well, this time, during these compromises, we're going to actually obey the rules, and one of us isn't going to break away and start having a hissy fit about it.
And the only way that we're going to have to be able to come to a compromise is if all we're going to have to do it.
Okay, so, well, another thing that we really didn't understand was that if y'all wanted to, be everybody together and y'all wanted to preserve the Union, why would y'all, first of all, why would y'all separate us and then still steal our ship?
Okay, so
When the war, wasn't declared, so that is, seen as, piracy and still,
okay,
this out.
you're saying that the war wasn't declared, but war was happening, whether it was declared or not. War was happening already. What Abraham Lincoln saw was war. Just because the Constitution didn't state that war was declared, it was still war. War is war.
You can't really declare war against yourself. You only declare war against other countries. So there's technically no way to declare war, but
Civil war.
you can't really declare a civil war.
Also, before a quote-unquote war was declared, the South has also been raiding federal forts that were owned by the federal government. So I see the blockades and taking the ships as more of compensation than y'all just telling us to stop.
Yeah, maybe, but a notice wasn't even given. And you
Notice
didn't even
wasn't given when you invaded those forts.
so that's a totally different thing.
We're
No,
not
it's
representing
not.
the
It's
South
actually-
here. We're
No.
just saying we're against
Yeah.
the blockade. We're not saying we're for what the South did. We're just saying the blockade wasn't constitutional and wasn't the correct action to be taken.
And we're saying that there was war, so we used the blockade.
Okay, so if there was war, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You can't say the blockade was unconstitutional because y'all broke away and seceded and created your own constitution, and therefore y'all disobeyed our constitution, the United States Constitution. And
So basically, y'all are constitutional, so how are y'all calling us out on being constitutional when y'all are constitutional yourself, unconstitutional?
Okay, well, if, like Dorian said, if we moved away and made our own constitution, why couldn't y'all declare war if we were already separated? Why, wouldn't that make us like a different nation? Wouldn't that have already put us separate? So what do you guys mean that you can't declare war if we're not together?
But we
You
were
had-
still trying to preserve the union, we were still trying to be together, we didn't want that to happen, so if the only way that we could do that is by doing all of this, then we were gonna have to do it.
Marty.
We were trying to do whatever it took.
You had already like broken away and seceded, but like you weren't officially made your own country yet. You were still technically a part of the United States, even if you were stating otherwise. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're like different countries. You're still part of us, just you're saying you're not.
Yeah, so what we're saying is that basically, y'all are trying to argue with us that we're unconstitutional, but y'all wanted to break away and make your own constitution, so how does that rely on our constitution? We don't want y'all to break away. We want the union to be unionized, you know?
Okay, so say we're still together, you know, like what's been said before, the blockade still separates us. And even if we are still together, you know, and the whole ship issue comes back up, if we are together and y'all are gonna take our ships without telling us, that's piracy and that's wrong. And that excuse me, that further ignites the problem as it just separates us even more.
Well, breaking away from the union and is basically treason, so y'all are basically, so now the South is basically full of like criminals and folks now. So,
I wanted to say, or I wanted to add on to what Adrian said, was that, or something also noted to where you guys were saying that you wanted to preserve the union. But if you want to preserve the union, why create such tensions when what it already is? You know, you said this blockade between our, I would say countries, because that's not what is happening. You know, right now we're in a situation where we want to be our own nation, or we want to do what we need to do. But you guys want to preserve the union, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Well, why set a blockade to increase that tension, to separate us? And we require needs that you guys have, and that's something, that's why we don't like what you guys are doing.
Okay. Marty, do you want to talk?
Let Dorian go, because he's been trying to say something.
Well, when y'all seceded, that was seen as an act of rebellion. And so like any other rebellion in like past history, it was the president's job to send federal troops down and crush down that rebellion. And then, but like y'all just seceded, and then y'all left us with nothing else to do but go to war. And so if we have to cut off y'all supplies,
Even if that means putting our supplies back for the cause that we're doing it for, if we're gonna have to do.
In the time that we're speaking of, slavery had been a point of contention for a long time. There had been a lot of issues about it. Bleeding Kansas, the Dred Scott case, the Missouri Compromise, all of them failed. Regardless of the blockades, there was already like a sort of barrier in between the North and the South. By setting up like war was inevitable at this point. So regardless of whether or not Lincoln put up the blockade, there was still already that. By putting up the blockade and then stopping more ammunition and guns from going to the South, then that would weaken their fighting power and allow the war to end faster instead of it continuing. We didn't want the war to start with, but because of all the actions in between the North and South on both sides, because neither of them could actually compromise, war was inevitable, and Lincoln just did what he had to do to get the war over faster, so that we could start rebuilding faster.
Was the war really ending faster if he just makes a decision without consulting Congress? Because if you think about it, you know, Congress it had people from the North and South. He wasn't really considering what would be best for both people. He was just considering what would be best for the North and what would be fastest for the North, not what would be best for the whole country. So at this time, there wasn't really a lot of consideration for the South as much as the North. It was just what he wanted in the North.
I feel like you're wrong, because if he only thought about the North, then why would he cut off the supplies to the North? We get our food, our grains from the South. Why would he do that if he was just thinking about the North? He was thinking about both.
Exactly. Why make the blockade if you need stuff from us.
That's my point.
And y'all,
That's my
exactly,
point.
so you're